When you think of topple locking, you probably think of Xenoblade 1 over Xenoblade X, since it's one of the more iconic broken strategies of that game. But did you know that it's also an extremely strong strategy in Xenoblade X as well? It isn't talked about nearly as much since Xenoblade X already has a plethora of ridiculously broken strategies, but topple locking is also one of those options, and Assault Rifle is one of the absolute best at accomplishing that task, being one of the strongest supporting weapons in the game because of its ability to just prevent most enemies from doing anything at all, including the global nemesis. Now, this is not exactly a good weapon for damage at all, but you can get some damage out of it, and I'm going to show that off just because it is really funny. Regardless, the main focus in this video will be topple locking and the support capabilities of the assault rifle, so I'll be talking about its strengths and weaknesses, and showcasing how to use it. As per usual, if you do enjoy guide content like this on Xenoblade X and would like to see more guides covering the remaining weapons, maybe a tier list of party members and weapons, and more general guide content, please do be sure to subscribe to the channel as it does help me out so much. I am once again getting very close to 100,000 subscribers and would really love to hit that milestone soon. Let's get into it. So, Assault Rifle is one of your starting weapons, and it doesn't initially seem very flashy. In a lot of cases, it isn't really that flashy, but it does have some pretty positive traits that make it a really strong supporting weapon, and it also has the most arts in the entire game, just having a full art palette here. So we're going to be talking about all of them, and I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. First up, we have Burst Grenade. This is thermal damage locked. Now, the Assault Rifle is one of those rare cases where you're probably not going to get much damage out of the Ether Core Crusher build anyway, which I did try to show off in this video. So you might actually get more damage by focusing on the thermal damage capabilities here and using the TP arts that you have available to you if you really want to get the most damage out of it. The problem, of course, with TP arts is that it's not going to be able to really be conducive and really coincide with the support build as well, because you want to run some specific augments for that support build to really get the most benefit out of it. So you're probably not going to be running this that much, but regardless, it can be a pretty powerful option, especially if you do it after toppling the enemy, which of course the Assault Rifle has the capability of doing. Next up, we have Flame Grenade. Once again, this is another thermal damage locked art. So you'll be doing thermal damage no matter what your weapon type is, and once again, it also does more damage to enemies that you inflict with Topple. So a lot of the early kit that you get with Assault Rifle is going to be focused on toppling the enemy and then using your arts to get the most damage and benefit. And once again, thermal damage is not going to be the best type of damage, but it might end up doing more than ether damage in this specific case just because, well, your options for ether damaging arts or just weapon attribute damaging arts are pretty limited on the kit here. Regardless, this is okay, decent early on in the game. Probably not something you're going to want to be focused on if you're doing more of the support capabilities, though. Next up, we have Assault Hammer. This deals physical damage and inflicts topple. Now, the physical damage part does not matter. This is actually a melee art on your ranged weapon. This is the one specific case where you can trigger melee combos with your ranged weapon by using this specific melee art with your ranged weapon. And once again, it also inflicts topple. Now, the cool thing about this game is you don't need to worry about breaking it or anything like that beforehand. You can just immediately go for the topple with this Assault Hammer. And if you have enough resistance reducer and the enemy isn't immune to topple, you can just immediately topple him. And you also have a immediate reuse bonus for your secondary and tertiary cooldown. You don't really have to worry about this doing too much damage that it breaks appendages or anything like that from being physical damage. Its damage is pretty laughably weak, so that doesn't really matter. The main point you're going to want to do with this is just topple the enemy, and it is very effective for doing that. This is one of the best arts in the game for just keeping enemies toppled locked. The fact that it doesn't cost TP either is fantastic. Really good art. If you're using Assault Rifle at all, you probably want this somewhere on your kit just to kind of stun lock the enemies a bit. Next up, we have Decoy Round. This will inflict taunt and boost your TP with morale, and increases TP by 300 times your morale level. Now, this is a decent purple art because in Overdrive, of course, you're going to get that 1000 TP if you have max count, so it's really easy to get some TP back by using this, and you get extra TP if you have more morale, so it's probably one of your better purple art options because of that. I like running it just as an option to have. It is not necessarily required on any kind of set, and if you are doing a supportive build and just kind of supporting your melee weapon outside of trying to get any damage out of this, you're probably going to want to drop this for something else, but if you need a purple art, this is a good purple art to have. Next up, we have Gun Force. If you are trying to get any type of ranged damage out of your assault rifle, you're probably going to want to use this. This has a strong ranged attack modifier, the exact same as full specs on the knife supporting weapon, and it also boosts your critical chance and reduces your secondary cooldown, making it probably just one of the best general auras for ranged attack damage. Once again, though, the assault rifle is not going to be the strongest ranged attack weapon in general, but just having this aura available to you is probably going to be the best bet if you want to try to get as much damage out of it as you can. Really good aura just in general. The secondary cooldown reduction is really nice, and the ranged attack boost is nice for just doing as much damage as possible. Next up, we have Power Dive. This grants supercharge and total evasion during the execution. Now, Supercharge, it will increase the damage of your next attack a pretty significant amount. Now, the problem is, this only applies on the first hit of your art. So, that is a major issue for a lot of the arts in this game, especially if you're trying to get as much damage as you can out of the ranged arts here, because, well, a lot of your arts have a really high hit count. You can combo this with single hit arts really effectively, like, hey, Hercules Blow, if you use Power Dive before that, you get the full benefit out of it. If you use Power Dive before Burst Grenade or something like that, you get the full benefit out of it since it's a single hit. But for something like, well, Furious Blast, it's 15 hits, has 50% hit scaling. You do not get much benefit out of Power Dive at all, and it's pretty much just not worth using. So Power Dive does have some niche uses depending on what you were using it before, but if you're using a lot of multi-hits, you're not going to get much benefit out of it. So it really just depends on your setup and what you plan to do. Next up, we have Flash Grenade. This is a blocked electric damage and inflicts a blackout. Once again, just a general purple art. You can use it to restore TP. Blackout is not really that useful of an effect against most super bosses or anything like that, but it is something, I guess. And the electric attribute is going to mean it's not going to be doing too much damage regardless. It does have immediate reuse as its effect, though, meaning you can get a decent amount of TP back from just kind of spamming it. So once again, it's useful as a purple art because of that. Next up, we have Takedown Shot. Now, this is one of the only arts that uses the weapon attribute damage. So that means it's going to be ether damage if you're running an ether assault rifle. The problem is the secondary cooldown bonus and tertiary cooldown bonus are immediate reuse, so you don't get that 400% damage multiplier like you would on a lot of other arts, meaning you're not actually going to get a lot of damage out of this despite having decent hit scaling and 6 hits. So it is something to just kind of have on your kit, but you're not going to get as much damage out of this as you probably want when you are running this. I did try to run it just to get some extra damage out when I could, but I noticed kind of quickly it did not end up being the most beneficial and the strongest option available to me. So I just kind of spammed Furious Blast with the set I'm going to be showing off today as far as general damaging purposes. Medic Free is an aura that gives you debuff resistance and auto revives upon incapacitation. This might seem okay at first glance, but the problem is, once again, if you're running this, you're not going to get a more useful damaging aura. And also, you don't really need this at all because if you are topple locking the enemy, they're not going to be really in a position to apply debuffs to you to begin with, and they're not going to be able to kill you, so you need to be auto-revived. So you don't really ever need this aura, especially if you're running a really strong topple locking set. Next up, we have Overclock. Now, the only real purpose I can see for using this art is if you really need to boost the fuel recovery of your skells while you are fighting in combat. But outside of that, I just don't really see any kind of use for this aura at all, especially over other more useful ground combat options. And I really don't think you really need to boost your fuel recovery either. So, in that sense, this is also kind of another worthless aura. Next up, we have Furious Blast. This is unfortunately going to be your best damaging option for ether-based damage on this entire kit. It has 15 hits, but only 50% hit scaling, so that's only about, 750% hit scaling total. And even then, the hits are not going to be the strongest hits. It does deal 300% more damage if you can trigger a melee combo, which is not the hardest to do. So we're going to try to be triggering melee combos when we do the damage with the Furious Blast today, because I did want to try to do some damage with the Assault Rifle to show that any weapon can be a damage weapon if you really want to build it that way. But it is definitely not the type of weapon you want to use primarily for damage most of the time. But, just in case you did, we'll be showing that off. Next up, we have Assault Breaker. This is really good when combined with Assault Hammer. It's one of the things that allows you to topple and stun lock enemies really, really efficiently. If you just kind of run behind the enemy after toppling them, you can stun them, and stunning will pause the topple duration. It also increases the amount of damage that everyone does to the stunned and toppled enemy. Topple is 50% additional additive damage, and stun is another 50% additional additive damage. So you can get a lot of benefit out of this. Once again, stun will freeze the topple duration timer, meaning you can keep applying stun while the enemy is toppled to keep them stun locked even longer if you want to and have the ability to do that. So Assault Breaker, another really fantastic ability with enough debuff resistance or resistance reducer on your character. You're able to apply this very, very consistently to pretty much every enemy not immune to topple or immune to stun, which is really nice to have. So very, very good art that combos very well with Assault Hammer for just kind of stun locking the enemy. Definitely recommend running this. Once again, this weapon is much better for support than it probably is for damage. You can definitely just run Assault Breaker and Assault Hammer on your set that just kind of supports your melee weapon. Works really well with your longsword. You can just kind of run offensive stance, topple lock the enemy, and then use your strong damaging art. No Ghost Walker required. Although you'd have to run some worse skills so you don't get as much damage out of it, but it is an option to consider, and it is something that can't be done in this game because, hey, you have so many options to make yourself really strong and broken in this game because, hey, it's Xenoblade X. I love the customization in it. Next up, we have Infuriate. This is, in my opinion, is just a worse version of decoy rounds that you don't get TP out of it. It's also a single hit that inflicts taunt, so I probably would not run this most of the time just because of that. Definitely just outclassed art in general. And now we have Last Stand. This is actually another really, really strong support option. It will grant 2,000 TP to party members that are fighting on foot, which is more than the 1,000 TP that it actually costs, meaning it is a very self-sufficient art that is very, very strong because of that, and boosting TP is actually a really strong effect that you can do for your allies. Now, if you're running the Overdrive Gain TP Grand Procession set, you don't necessarily need Last Stand, but it is nice to just have this option available to you. It can be very, very strong and very, very powerful in the right situations. Very good supporting art. Then we have Quick Cannon. Once again, this is a thermal locked damage art. So even with the really strong hit scaling, it doesn't really matter because, well, it's just going to be thermal locked damage. Now, I would not be surprised, again, if thermal damage is actually stronger than ether damage just because you have more powerful art options available to you, so it might actually outdo Core Crusher. But even still, you probably are not going to be wanting to use Assault Rifle for actual damage purposes most of the time, so it probably does not actually matter too much. But having those options available to you, if you really want to go a thermal damage build, you do have some decent options available to try that. And then we have Grenade Blitz. This also deals thermal damage, because why not? Also has pretty powerful hit scaling, 3 hits with 500% damage scaling. Not too bad. Another pretty decent, just kind of general art effect. It doesn't have any special effects like some of the other effects, but, you know, if you want to do some more additional thermal damage, you have that option available to you. Regardless, though, you're probably going to want to mainly focus on Assault Hammer, Assault Breaker, maybe Last Stand for supporting capabilities. Decoy Round can be really good for getting your TP back in Overdrive if you don't have a set to do that. And Furious Blast is just an okay option to run in general. If you use it after a green art, you can also just build 30 count very, very quickly, making it one of the most efficient Overdrive count builders in the entire game. So it does have some use outside of trying to get some meaningful damage out of it at the very least, so that's nice. For my supporting options, since I am still trying to do some ether-based weapon damage here, I do have Black Butterfly, which will lower ether resistance of enemies, and I am just also running Smooth Recovery for the immediate reuse effect. You could run full specs, but it's just going to be outclassed by Gun Force in this case because it's the same ranged attack boost, and you don't really need the potential and ether resistance with the set I am running. If you are running the thermal damage build and you are using the Burst Grenade TP art, you probably want to run full specs instead, and you're probably going to want to run Energy Source to boost your own potential with that as well. So you can get a lot of extra damage out of the Burst Grenade, and probably outdamage even the ether-based build here. So this might be one of the only weapons that you can actually outdamage ether. I don't know that for sure, but it is probably an option that you could consider. For my skill setup, once again, since I am trying to get some damage out of the ether-based attacks here, I am running Core Crusher. If you are using Assault Rifle as a supporting weapon, you're probably going to want to keep Core Crusher anyway, because there's a really high chance your melee weapon is going to be using ether-based damage to get as much damage as possible. But if you are trying to get as much damage out of the thermal damage capabilities of the Assault Rifle as possible, there is a boost of thermal damage 50% on the tree here, Conflagrant Edge, so you are able to run that instead if you want to do that and try to get as much thermal damage as possible. Grand Procession is really good as a supporting art or supporting ability just in general on this kit. I'm running the Overdrive Gain TP build where I'm able to get basically instant max overdrive and just instant duration just by kind of spamming overdrive with the setup that I have, which is a really nice option for the support assault rifle, especially because you want to hit max count immediately to make sure you can topple lock enemies effectively by reducing their resistance by 100%. And then, of course, we have boosted bullets. This will boost your ranged attack. Now, if you are not running this as a damage, you do not need this, of course. If you're running it more as support, do not run this. Run something else. Run something like Aura Assault for your melee weapon. Supreme Sword, this is just kind of a way to try to get as much melee damage as I can, or damage as I can out of Furious Blast, I mean, by triggering those melee combos before it. So that's an additional 100% additive multiplier because of that. And then finally, I have Long Topple. You definitely want this. You can extend your topple effects by 5 seconds when you have Long Topple. This is really, really good for topple locking and stun locking the enemy as much as possible. Definitely consider running this. And then finally, there are some other options you could consider. You have Topple Topper, which can reduce enemy topple resistance by another 30% if you really need it. Some enemies do have really high topple resistance, so you can consider this. But if you have something like a resistance reducer, you're probably not going to need to run this most of the time. But it can be an option. It is something to absolutely consider if you need it. Secondary Accelerator and Fast Forward are also really, really good in this case. Secondary Accelerator will reduce your secondary cooldown, so you can spam some of your arts more often if you're not cycling between a bunch of arts. And then, of course, you have Fast Forward, which is just if you're trying to trigger the melee combo for Furious Blast, you'll get a lot of benefit out of this as well. So that is something to consider also. There are some other options you could consider here, but if you want to run more mainly support capabilities, focus on reducing enemy resistance to debuffs, focus on your topples. Those are going to be the main things you're going to want to be looking at here. And Grand Procession is, once again, probably a requirement if you really want to get the most benefit out of the kit, since you're going to want to be spamming that Overdrive Gain TP as much as you can. For the equipment setup, I am predictably running a knife that has a Appendage Crusher attached to it since I'm not going to be using it for damage, and Black Bane is always, or Black Butterfly, I mean, is always going to be ether damage no matter what. So this is probably going to be the best setup here since I'm not using it for potential. If you want to run a potential-based set, you probably want to run a knife that has potential up on it. Just kind of get the most benefit out of that to do as much damage as you can. Then, of course, I'm running an Ether Assault Rifle to try to get some kind of damage out of it. A ranged attack up Ether Assault Rifle that also has ranged accuracy up so I can hit enemies more consistently that are able to kind of dodge your attacks more easily, since there are a lot of really evasive high-level enemies in this game. For the actual augments on the weapons themselves, I am running 3 Appendage Crushers on the knife, as you might expect, and then I am running 2 ranged attack ups and 1 overdrive count up. Now, if you can get overdrive count up on one of your other pieces of gear, you do not need to run the overdrive count up here, so you can stack more ranged attack if you're trying to get damage out of your assault rifle, or more melee attack if you're using it for more supportive purposes and want to do more damage with your melee weapon, which is absolutely probably more viable as an option anyway, but just for the sake of showing off the range damage capabilities of the assault rifle, we're going to be using that ranged attack up. And we got that overdrive count up to make sure we can hit max overdrive count when we just kind of spam overdrive at the start of battle. So that's why we're going to be doing that. With the setup I have, I currently have 5 Appendage Crushers, 1 on my knife, 1 on my eye patch, and then 3 is just augments that I have equipped to my knife. 5 should be the maximum you will ever need, since every enemy should have an appendage with a softness of 0, basically, so you're able to target that one and get the maximum bonus effect and the maximum bonus damage from having those Appendage Crushers, which is really nice. Outside of that, my other gear that I have on my body, my armor, I'm running a ranged attack up torso to get as much range damage as I can. This also comes with some max TP up to have some additional TP. I have all the way at 5,800 TP. You don't necessarily need that much, but it is nice to have anyway. And then we have the Ultra Infinite Ys L and Ultra Infinite Ys R. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's fine. One of these has max TP up while having ranged attack up and also extend overdrive. The last effect does not matter when we can just spam overdrive no matter what with this current setup, but it is something. The ranged attack up is nice, and the max TP up can be pretty nice as well, depending on your setup and what you're doing with your set and your supporting kit. And then on the other one, I once again have ranged attack up, just to kind of maximize my range damage. This arm can also come with overdrive count up, so if you're able to get it on that, you're able to save an augment slot on your weapon, which is also pretty nice to have. And then, of course, I have the Ultra Infinite Boots. This is going to be for the Resistance Reducer trait. I wanted that Resistance Reducer trait so I could run maximum overdrive gain TP, all 5 of my augment slots on my armor, to make sure that I can just instantly activate overdrive with Grand Possession and make overdrive free and just kind of spam that as much as I can, because I'm getting 2,500 TP back by activating overdrive with the augments and 500 from that skill, meaning that overdrive is free. And obviously Resistance Reducer is just going to be able to allow us to topple enemies more consistently, which is really nice to have. Make sure we can topple even some of the strongest enemies in the entire game very, very consistently and kind of keep them stun locked. It also helps when you're stunning the enemy as well, since it's another different kind of thing that we're doing here. So, topple locking, stun locking, very, very good to have at least one resistance reducer because of that, and that is why I'm running this here. If you want more ranged attack damage, you can get ranged attack damage from the shop on your boots, so you are able to run that as well. Now, I have a total ranged attack of 1,144 right now. We can definitely hit a little bit higher, but even with this value, we're still not going to be doing as much damage as a lot of the other weapons in the game, which is a little unfortunate, but, we're going to do our best. We're going to do our best. If you do have any plans on topple locking at all, I do kind of recommend running overdrive gain TP so you can get your count up really quickly. And even if you can't, you kind of can just spam Furious Blast after a green art to build up your count very quickly, because you want to build up max overdrive so you can reduce enemy resistance to debuffs as much as possible so you can topple more efficiently. If you are using the assault rifle more as a supporting weapon, definitely focus more on melee attack than ranged attack here. I'm just trying to get some damage out of this and just kind of showcase that you can make any kind of weapon work with damage. But our main focus is going to be on topple locking, and you can still do that while focusing on melee attack as well. So you can run your topple lock kit while also having some good melee attack, and also kind of killing enemies really fast by topple locking them and just kind of focusing on that. Now, we'll be showing that off in this video a little bit as well. I think that is going to cover it for the setup, though. Let's go ahead and get into the really funny demonstrations now and just kind of showcase what these weapons and what everything here can do. Just so this part isn't shoved at the end of the video, I did want to showcase that you can use the Assault Hammer as a very useful supporting weapon just to kind of topple the enemy before you're using your strongest damaging options. Now, this is not a longsword video, so we're not going to spend too much time on this, but you are able to topple and get a lot of benefit out of toppling enemies by taking advantage of that with your Assault Hammer. And the overdrive gain TP makes your topple very consistent, so you're able to topple even the enemies that have the highest resistance in the game very, very effectively. And you can very, very easily get those Assault Hammers off and topple, stun the enemy, and then go into your stronger damaging moves here, right? So a True Stream Edge into another Assault Breaker, keep that topple going, that stun going, into a Hercules Blow. Very, very easy kill even on this first of one of the other new super bosses that we have in this game. The level 99 ghost inside the cave. Alright, enough of that, though. You probably already know how broken Longsword is, and Topple is just another way to kind of enable that. But I'm going to show you how you can do damage with the Assault Rifle on the 100 million HP Gradivus, the Headless Emperor, and how you can keep this dude Topple locked for like 12 minutes. I will be speeding up the second half of the fight, though, don't worry, because otherwise this would be way, way too long. So I go ahead, max out my Overdrive, and we're able to just immediately topple him. Now, the one thing about this guy is if you keep toppling him while he's already on the ground, you're going to like push him back forever. So basically what you have to do kind of is kind of temper it in a way where you wait till he gets up before you topple him again. And I'm just going to be toppling him and stun locking him with Assault Hammer and Assault Breaker, just kind of keeping this dude on the ground as much as possible and trying to do as much damage as I can with Furious Blast. Activating my aura, activating Smooth Recovery so I get the yellow bonus and Overdrive, and then going ham with the damage there. Look at that, huge damage, huge damage. I just did a huge chunk of his health bar there. This fight isn't going to be very long at all. But we can keep him top locked the entire time. We don't need any other defensive options. We don't need Reflect. We don't need Ghost Walker. We don't need Astral Protection. We don't even need Resistances. All we need is a Topple and a Dream here. And that is what we're going to be doing. I apply Black Butterfly when I can to lower his Ether Resistance as well, so we can have more damage with Ether-based attacks. Use Smooth Recovery into Furious Blast again, and I'm doing about 100,000 damage per hit. So this 100 million HP is going to go down crazy fast. All right, we just got to get in the groove here. We got to get in the groove here. But regardless, this is definitely a very, very consistent and easy strategy to do if you have enough resistance reduction. And with the setup I'm running, you're able to very, very easily just kind of topple lock pretty much everything that's not immune to topple in the game. So that is very, very nice to be able to do. Like I said, Gradivus is one of the tankiest enemies in the entire game, and I'm trying to do as much damage as I can. This is definitely not as strong as the other damage options that you have available to you as a weapon class, but the toppling capabilities are very, very nice regardless, and that is something that is really, really cool. Because once again, that is another additional way you can basically make yourself invincible in this game. There's like 4 or 5 different ways to do that, because Xenoblade X is very customizable and has a bunch of different broken options available to it, and that really is just going to be the main appeal of this game. So Assault Hammer into Assault Breaker to get that topple and the stun off. You can reapply Assault Breaker while the topple is still active to get the another stun off, and you can get a bunch of additional damage out of that as well. So the general strategy I am trying to do here is keep that Black Butterfly up, keep my aura up, and make sure I cancel out of a melee art into my Furious Blast here. Now, the one issue with using Assault Hammer and Assault Breaker after like a green art or something is that the Overdrive counter turns red. If you go from a red art, if you go from the red counter into a yellow art, you will not get nearly as much damage, right? So you need to make sure that you are doing a green art or a blue art into a yellow art to get the most benefit. Now, I am just using, after my yellow art, I am just going into my orange arts because we don't need the damage bonus from the Overdrive for those, since we're just mainly using that for toppling and for applying Black Butterfly's Ether Resistance down. So I am able to cancel out of that back into the yellow if I want to get the maximum damage. So could Thermal outdamage this? Probably. I would not be surprised at all. So this might be one of the cases where Thermal damage can actually do more damage, because even with Core Crusher and 5 Appendage Crushers, it's still not doing that much. But with Thermal damage, you would probably break all the appendages eventually, meaning that you would be locked onto the body, meaning you're probably going to do less damage without Appendage Crushers. So I really just don't know. I just don't know for sure, honestly. It really just kind of depends. But I'm sure it wouldn't be... I'm sure it would probably be a little bit different than this and might go a little bit smoother than this, especially because you get topple damage up on a lot of those thermal damage arts. So, like I said, general strategy, make sure we're canceling out of melee arts and a Furious Blast for as much damage as possible. We're doing about 1.5 million per Furious Blast, assuming all the buffs and everything are set up properly. And if by keeping him toggle with stun lock, he's not able to get his aura off, which means we're not going to get that damage reduction when he has that. I believe that aura can also make him topple immune, or at least makes it harder to topple him, so we definitely want to make sure we can prevent that by just keeping him stun locked here. As you can see, we're kind of getting closer and closer up the shore or the beach here, since sometimes I am toppling a little bit early and he's just kind of getting pushed backwards, which is really, really funny that you can just kind of hit this huge dinosaur with the side of your assault rifle and you can just kind of push him back forever. But, you know, that's just how this game works sometimes. But yep, just make sure you apply Black Butterfly, make sure you have your aura up, make sure you cancel into Furious Blast with the melee art, make sure you keep them topple locked. It's really not too terribly difficult of a strategy here. I'm using Smooth Recovery to make sure I have a melee art that is a green art that I can cancel into Furious Blast as well. So that is really nice to be able to do also. And you can see at this point, like I said, I already sped it up, but you can see at this point, he is going down. He is going down eventually. It is definitely much slower than any other weapon I have shown off. You probably should not be using the assault rifle for actual damaging purposes over just kind of supportive capabilities for your other weapons. But, you know, the fact that you have that option, the fact that you can make anything work in this game is really, really cool. And that is why I did want to just kind of show it off anyway. It is definitely slow. This fight took me over 10 minutes. But you know what? That's okay. There might be another solid and easier way to do this. You might be able to run more ranged attack out to make it easier. But you know, with my setup, I was able to make it work. And I'm just kind of showing that off here. I love Xenoblade X. I love being able to make everything work in this game. I love being able to topple lock. I love being able to make myself invincible 3 other ways. And I love that you just have so many options available to you. So yep, topple locking, once again, very, very broken in this game. This dude has not been able to move the entire time, has not been able to do anything at all. So another just kind of way you can just make yourself invincible using the tools the game has available to you. And you can run this topple locking set as a supporting weapon for any other melee weapon. You can just kind of make sure you have all the necessary things to topple lock, and then make sure you have a really strong melee weapon, and you should be pretty much fine from there. Well, regardless, I do think that is probably going to cover it from this guide. That is Gradius the Headless Emperor using Assault Rifle as your main damaging weapon. Might take a while, but it does work. And, yeah, I do hope you learned something from watching this video, and if you did, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Please look forward to future weapon guides. Please look forward to learning more about Xenoblade X. And make sure to share with your friends who love topple locking in Xenoblade 1 and show them that this strategy is not dead in this game and it is still something viable. And honestly, it is one of the absolute best strategies to support your friends in Global Nemesis runs as well, which is really, really nice to just have that option available to you. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest day, and hopefully I will see you back here soon.